And without any kind of further ado, I wanted to introduce Dr. Lauren Devines with the Aleut Community of St. Paul Island. She's the Ecosystem Conservation Office Director. She is based here in Anchorage part-time, and then in normal years, when she's able to be out on the island, she's based out there certainly during the summer months, and oversees a bunch of different work for the tribe out of the Pribilofs. I think a number of folks on the call have met Lauren. She's been engaged with the Northern Latitudes Partnerships, the LCCs, for, I don't know, like 5 years or maybe longer than that now. And kind of a key thing where we overlap with her a lot these days is this Indigenous Sentinels Network program that is connected to not only a number of the projects that Fish and Wildlife Service is funding going into 2021, but a bunch of the other projects that the Northern Latitudes Partnerships have going on as well. So if you guys remember when this group met in November, kind of threw out the suggestion that, hey, maybe it'd be great to have Lauren come and talk to you guys and share a little bit about Indigenous Sentinels Network. So I think I'll hand it off to you, Lauren, and you should be able to obviously introduce yourself more if I botched it.
No.
But then you should be able to share your screen too. I think you have a dozen slides or something like that you want to go through with folks.
I do, yes. Thank you for the intro. I don't, in the interest of time, I don't need to add anything. I know a lot of folks on the phone as well, and hi to those that I don't know. I hope we get to work with you in the future. I am based in Anchorage right now, unfortunately, because I can't get to St. Paul, but also because I don't want to quarantine for 2 weeks with a now 1-year-old and 13-year-old kids that I would be toting out there. So I'm going to stay put in Anchorage for right now. And what I'm going to present on today, let's see if I can go ahead and share screen. Have a PowerPoint for you. Are you seeing it in the normal without my notes version? Except that I can't access my notes now, which is unfortunate. If I do presenter view, are you still seeing the same screen?
We do, and then it shows the next slide.
I see your presenter view. If you have 2 screens, you could choose that other screen.
I don't. I only have 1 screen. I'll just not use my notes. That's
Wing
okay.
it, you'll be fine.
Yeah, it's fine. So I'm gonna share with you, I think, a fast, quick overview of a really exciting program that I'm a part of. I got to inherit kind of shepherding this program and its expansion from the Aleut Community of St. Paul Island. It began as Bering Watch decades ago. I'm not exaggerating when I say that, but I had the fortune of coming in to work for the tribe and then getting to learn about this monitoring program, and now getting to expand and make it into something that is useful to tribes and First Nations and hopefully agency partners, university, everyone that has an interest in kind of these on the ground observations in the Arctic. And so the Indigenous Sentinels Network is the name of the program. And really this began and has stayed true to 2 main foundations that get at really our goal, which is long-term monitoring tool. We want to give tools to communities to be able to record ecological, including environmental monitoring data, and then like, anomalous biological observations or standardized biological survey type data. And then not just taking the information, but a way to communicate that information and share data and get that out to partners and the public as needed. And so the 2 foundations that we work on, first, I work for a tribal government. So we're a federally recognized tribe, 450 Unangan in the Pribilof Islands, which is in the middle of the Bering Sea. The island of St. George is about 40 miles south east of us, and it's 60-ish people strong, 2 Aleut or Unangan communities. And so naturally, anything that we do is going to be rooted in traditional and Indigenous knowledge. And the whole program was born out of this need to have data collection. It was actually around marine mammals. So there's harvest of northern fur seals, stellar sea lions, and a little bit of harbor seals sporadically in St. Paul and St. George. And this whole program was born out of a need to collect information that could be both utilized in a quantitative way with Western science that was being conducted in the Pribilof on fur seals and like long-term monitoring programs, but then also to bring in the traditional and local knowledge piece of that. So, you know, why would you pick different vantage points? Why would you design a survey the way that you design it? That's all rooted in using these different ways of knowing for the program design. And then the second foundation is that we recognize there's a lot of community-based efforts out there, and a lot of those tend to be one-off or, you know, start and stop efforts because they don't have local buy-in at the community level. And so we feel like what we designed, we needed it to have local buy-in, or else the effort was going to be doomed. And I think that holds true today. So here we have the Indigenous Sentinels Network. And what is it? In its evolution, it is currently an online database. Is password protected. So you get a username and a password. You're also associated with a community. So I am associated with the community of St. Paul. I can collect data for St. Paul. I, as an administrator, have a level of permission to also like run reports and pull data from the website that I can export and make GIS maps or send a CVS or an Excel file to an agency partner. Use it in writing annual reports and that kind of stuff. But there's levels of permission, and that's to, if you look down at the bottom, address one of those key issues of data ownership and confidentiality. But it's an online accessible database. And we also have a web and a mobile version of the app. So I can take my iPhone, my iPad out into the field. I enter the app and I can go to and navigate to the survey that I need and then input the data there. It all works offline. And then those data are synced and uploaded to the database when I am back within Wi-Fi range. And I actually initiate it so that we don't have any issue with automated syncing and then, you know, data getting lost. We've actually never lost data in all of the years of operating, which is important to note because it does happen. And those include like photo and video data. So those are the big pieces of it, but we also have these other things that really make the monitoring network unique in a lot of ways. And that is, we do have a website, we have a Facebook, we use social media to contact and communicate with people inside and outside of our region and our partners in different projects. And we can communicate with the general public in this way too, so we can push information to users. We also use this kind of stuff to say, push an observation to the LEO network, where we can upload an observation into the LEO network map and website and initiate a whole conversation and thread on, say, an anomalous, you know, stranding of a whale. And then those data are contributed to LEO's database as well.
Hey, Lauren.
Yes.
Can you tell them what the LEO network is?
Oh, I'm sorry. The Local Environmental Observer Network is www.leonetwork.org. It's ANTHC, Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium, owned and operated. It's an app-based or web-based portal where you can go and log environmental observations. It's open to anyone, but you have to sign up for it. So again, it's a username and password type interface. And once you log an observation, they are verified before they're uploaded. So it's not real time. And what the one of their goals is to, if I see something weird in the environment, I can take a picture, I can upload it as an observer. Then they will shop that around to university researchers, agencies, scientists, anyone that might have some information on it. If it's something that's a weird something on salmon, they might look to ADF&G, some university researchers, and try to get an answer or some kind of context for that observation that I'm seeing. And then if enough people are posting about weird spots on salmon, that might be something that LEO network pulls and says, we need to look at this and see what's going on in the environment that might be causing this. And so there's this whole, they frame everything in a One Health, health of the environment, health of the people, you know, very connected, more holistic way of looking at monitoring and observations. Is that good? Okay. So, so again, another like community-ish monitoring program, but more community-based in the internet world where you can be anywhere and post an observation. So ours, this Indigenous Sentinels Network, is people on the ground. One thing that is important to note is that we pay our observers. So it began as funding, grant funded, like through the EPA General Assistance Program or through our co-management funds, paying individuals with the expertise to be a sentinel as their job position and to pull these data through surveys and be able to do that as a job, as a full-time job. We also operate as like temporary or seasonal staff and part-time positions. We've expanded out, and Aaron could speak more to this, as a pay per observation platform, or initiating direct payments for a specific set of data that might come in from a volunteer user group. There's a lot of different ways to do this. And actually value people's time to go out and collect data for you, whether that's a full-time position or utilizing opportunistic, pay per observation type platforms. So I'm sorry, I got way off base. You said wing it, so I'm winging it. And so we also have a handbook. We use standardized protocols. That is so that data are repeatable, that they are standardized data. They are oftentimes quantitative and tied with qualitative information, but it's really important for us to have, protocols and someone that can help on the technical side to, say, identify a bird species in a photo. And so we have those kinds of checks and balances worked into the system as well. So the quality control, quality assurance, I can verify in the database whether observations are complete, whether they're consistent, whether they're following the protocols, or there's a critical piece of information missing, or somebody had a typo and it just, the observation doesn't look quite right to me. I can send that back to that person and flag it for quality control. They can fix it, and then it's resolved in the database. So all really like key pieces of information when you need to have standardized, repeatable data to make decisions on. So here again, just a different look at what we have. Here's the Leo network app that I have on my phone, and here's my Bering watch. So I would click into my app and be able to use that for data collection. And then the communication through social media sites such and in like e-newsletters and posts. And then our training materials are the handbook and set of protocols. Some of our current and past communities. So you can see in the map, St. Paul and St. George in the middle of the Bering Sea. And then we expanded first and foremost out into the Aleutian chain because we started as Bering Watch. And so we were really interested in getting observations from around our region. And we have operated in King Cove, False Pass, Akutan, and Unalaska, and Atka on the chain. Then we got a wild hair and went out into Western Alaska and Hooper Bay. Through the Yukon River Intertribal Watershed Council partnership, actually. And most recently, we have expanded out into the Tanana Chiefs Conference region up in that inset, up in interior Alaska through our partnership with Northwest Boreal. Why would U.S. Fish and Wildlife maybe care about this? I don't know. Here is an example. So we recognized that as part of a tribal wildlife grant, I believe, before my time with the tribe, were overwintering duck and gull surveys in St. Paul. And we did those for 2 years in partnership with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And then we stopped observing. And when I came on board, we realized that I kind of dug into why we stopped collecting data. Would we be able to start those up as just an institutional survey that we do? And we were able to work them in and kind of leverage some other surveys out in the field to be able to accomplish these as well. And so we re-implemented sea duck and gull surveys, and we're still doing those now. And in 2016, we decided to do kind of a re-look at these multi-year counts. And so we compared the 2010 to 2012, which we did under the Tribal Wildlife Grant, with the New Year surveys of data. And so we had two kind of time chunks that we could compare, and we're still doing that. And so we're looking to maybe take another look at that now that it's 2020. We have another handful of years under our belt. But this is one thing, this is a publication that we put out in 2016 based on the sea duck and gull surveys that we re-implemented. And so this is a time when U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is not on the island. There's a long-term data set for summer breeding in the Pribilof, and this was one way, like, we are on the ground where we have local staff that can access these areas over the winter time, and so we can get really valuable information on overwintering ducks and gulls on St. Paul, where other agency staff are not able to be out, and it might be cost prohibitive to do that. So this, again, as I said, was developed for marine mammal monitoring, and we do archive in a secure database. We also have data confidentiality and data ownership agreements. It's a series of paperwork every community signs when they come on. They're able to own their community data. It's owned by the tribe typically. So like a Coeric would not own data. It would be down to the individual community and the individual tribal council for each one of those participating communities. And so it's owned at the community level. But the big thing is that whereas a lot of community-based monitoring programs are designed specifically to address a specific question, so it might be about sea ice or it might be about marine mammals, this one we have designed to be flexible and customizable, which has allowed us to expand out as far as we have, where we are a marine community and we design these with those priorities in mind. When we moved into the Tanana Chiefs region, they were concerned about moose and rivers and permafrost, and we don't have any of those issues, but we're able to take the container of the data collection system and that framework and customize it, make it flexible. And so the platform itself is really the tool that is so useful to expanding for a variety of different surveys and needs and data collection efforts. And it really just streamlines everything, making data collection more timely, making data dissemination more timely. It involves the community because you have local on the ground residents and experts that are doing the data collection and kind of framing how and what information are collected. We've addressed those data ownership and data confidentiality issues with the kind of agreements that we put in place on the front end. And really what this has done is been able to strengthen our partnerships. We have data to bring to the table now. We have a voice in management decisions. We can more fully evaluate local management decisions because we have a wide breadth of data to go back to and look at. And then it's always really framed and refocused and put into context with our local community knowledge. And so that's been really the strength of this program. I have a few slides that kind of run through like what an observation looks like. Erin, I don't know though how much time you want me to spend on that.
I think it's helpful for people to see. Did you see Jeremy's question in the chat?
I didn't, because I'm sharing my screen.
Oh, Raj, okay.
But I can pause for a question.
It's a long question. I'll save it till the end.
Oh, okay.
So, and I can be quick because these are the kinds of screens that you would see. And I'm sorry for those on the phone that aren't getting to see this. I could explain every little drop. Basically, there's a series of screens that you would encounter on your mobile device. And each screen asks for information in a very simple way, typically through drop-down menus and autofill menus. So on the first page, we collect some basic information about who's doing the observing, where you're doing the observing. And a lot of the boxes that we design for the app are customized so that if I am in the community of St. Paul Island, when I click that community, it's going to basically autofill to my community that I'm in. And then that keeps you from having long lists to look at or to scroll through. So we really, like, down to the community level, try to minimize the number of options that you would have and minimize the amount of scrolling. Our observers don't, and I certainly don't want to be out in the field when it's blowing -20 trying to do a winter survey with gloves on and my iPad that is got in a life-proof case and I'm trying to touch the screens and move it. So everything is like sized and simplified to be able to operate in those kinds of conditions, which makes every other condition relatively easy from there. And so as you would click through for an environmental observation, maybe you're taking some information about the sea state or like river levels, you can customize your drop-down menus to kind of set the range of data that you would like to collect. And so everything really is customizable to be as simple as you need, and things like latitude and longitude that now can be pulled from a cell phone or an iPad or anything kind of device can be auto-filled. So you would just touch the screen and then it would auto-fill whatever information you can. And we also use things like a Bad Elf GPS, a relatively inexpensive unit that can Bluetooth to your mobile device, and then it can pull the information from there. Again, saving you a step in the field. There's a couple of screens that I'm putting up that just show some of the check boxes or some of those drop-down menus as a like biological species observation would be. And so just to give you an idea of the diversity of information that we kind of collect around different types of surveys, anything from how are you taking the observation with your naked eye with a pair of binoculars? What's the magnification of the binoculars? Is this the first time that you've seen it? Is this more than expected, less than expected? If you're counting, the numbers of seals on a shoreline, maybe it's really, you've never seen them there before. And so there's just a lot of different information and different ways that you can collect information in a pretty simple way. We're taking that and continuing to build on it and expand and try to make it better. So one of the things we're doing is to work out push notifications. So National Weather Service wants to be able to get information from people in a community that are experiencing a storm, and Weather Service predicts 8 to 12 foot waves. They want to know if what people are seeing on the ground are actually 8 to 12 foot waves, or if they can get information that is better. So people say no, they push the notification, people respond back to that notification that they've pushed out to say no, waves are only maximum of 4 feet. This is what we're seeing on the ground. Here's a picture. Weather Service can immediately take that information back and refine their forecasting and modeling. Oh, Jeremy, I hope I use the word forecasting in the right way. And so there's a real-time benefit of being able to push out notifications to solicit observations or to invite people to respond and provide observations or photos to a particular phenomena that you're interested in. And so we're working to test that out in some communities. We're also including a more sophisticated mapping feature where you could draw polygons that could be imported into Excel, or into GIS, or just ways to interface better in a mapping capable way, because communities really do need to be able to have those visuals. We think that's a powerful tool that at this moment is probably one of our weaker features. And so we're looking to improve that. And then again, Aaron can talk more to this, but the paper observation and helping to do more targeted observations in collaboration with agencies and management bodies in a way that is like very simple. You don't need a full-time observer, something like that. So we're really looking to expand in a lot of different ways. And I'm sure I missed a couple of things, but I'll say this has been, again, because it's 20 years in the making, a very long-term, many people to thank have funded different pieces of development, expansion, refinement of the program. And so there's more people to add at this point, and I didn't update this, so I'm sorry, but happy to take Jeremy's long question now.
Thanks, Lauren.
Okay, sure. And I like seeing the update and where this is, and have been, of course, pleased to hear about its evolution. So just yesterday, in a digital room full of pointy-headed people attending AGU, we heard some really startlingly interesting parallels between remote islands in the Western Pacific and Western Alaska. And many of you probably have heard, these parallels drawn before, because despite the fact that these are tropical regions, they have a lot in common with communities in Alaska. And so we got into a discussion where Bering Watch and Indigenous Sentinels Network came up because our, parallel researchers in the Western Pacific were really interested in what you do in a low bandwidth environment where you have community members interested in observing the environment and feeding that information into other larger efforts that affect them. And so I shared as an example with a guy named Rich McKenzie, who is Forest Service and does work out in the Western Pacific in Micronesia. And he was really thrilled with it. And his first question of me is there a white paper or something else I can refer to learn more about how this developed, what its pitfalls and lessons learned, but also what its successes look like? And I drew a blank. And so my question for you is, I know that if capacity is limiting, the effort has to be focused on Alaska and the current development of the tool and its use and that sort of thing. But are there plans for, or does there exist, such a document that somebody like Rich could look at and say, wow, I wonder if we could find the right person to make this happen somewhere else? Barring that, are you interested in connecting with people who might be willing or interested in making something happen like that somewhere else?
Yes, there are. I have some actually like white paper and 1-page, 2-pagers that I can send to you, and you can pick what best fits their situation. I also have a couple of white papers from some other efforts around the Arctic, actually, in Russia and like the Inuit Circumpolar Council in Canada and Greenland, on some, just to give some different community-based monitoring background. But yes, I think we are not limited to Alaska. Aaron could talk to you about our Beaufort to Baja idea. We're working with the California group that just got the funding for looking at marine spatial planning, and specifically involving tribes there in the state. And we are looking to, they have a database, but each community gets its own database. And so we're working with them to coordinate. And I think it's not a matter of taking over or everyone trying to use one thing. We are looking to coordinate and network our networks so that all of us can benefit and be more effective, like ION, like the Arctic Alaska Observatory and Knowledge Hub, AOK, that operates up in the North Slope. We've actually just started syncing with them to bring our 2 databases and observation methods together and join forces. There's a lot going on to promote and share out what we have done, how we've been successful, the roadblocks we've run into, and how the evolution has kind of gotten us to where we are today. And I think in general, the observing and research world is getting to the point where we're looking to these technologies to simplify, streamline, make data more available, collect more data, make better decisions. And we're just hitting that kind of critical mass. So that was probably a lot more than you needed, but yes, we would be interested in talking to them as Indigenous Sentinels Network. We are not bound by any geography in this internet world. And I'd be happy if somebody, reached out to me about that. That's fine. Or you put me in contact with someone, but we're also happy to share, like, in general, what we've been learning from other networks as well, and put them in contact with anyone that can help.
That's a great answer. So when you're ready for Pribilof to Pohnpei, which is where they're at, mangrove, then great. I think he'd be thrilled to see that. And I think what they're looking for is, a model that they can at least consider, because what they've got is so similar. A lot of really driven people from those communities who, see changes in mangroves, wondering what climate change means for them, and starting to adapt and respond kind of on their own. But the more that they try to, link up observations and other information, sometimes from the Western science world, the more they're looking for a model. And so rather than reinventing the wheel, they could take one and at least change the spokes so it works for Micronesia. Thanks.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's, you captured exactly what everyone at this point I would describe as trying to do. We're trying to not reinvent the wheel, but just like, you know, change out the tire, change out the rim, the spoke, whatever needs to happen to make it work. And communities are very unique in their needs and their priorities. And, you know, we all have different species and climate change concerns. And there's just, you know, infinite number of possibilities. And that's where we have kind of created a unique niche, or see our unique niche, is that apps are being developed, programs are being developed, and you know, these efforts are taking place, and they're either limited in space and time or to a specific focal species or phenomena. And what we need is a container that can really be flexible. And for that reason, that I think that's where we're seeing the success of now we're getting invitations to collaborate, to partner, to synthesize databases together, or efforts together. Arctic Council is certainly looking for a circumpolar environmental observation network. Sustaining Arctic Observing Network, SAON, there's a million acronyms, and we're all trying to do the same thing. The observing community is quite large, and so we have these tools, and what we want to do is make them available and usable for as many people as possible, so that we can coordinate data collection. We're doing the same things and comparing apples to apples, and being really intentional in creating useful information for better decision making.
Hey, Lauren, can I just quickly add, and then we'll ask for more questions too. There are 2 projects that Fish and Wildlife Service funded this year. One of them is this anadromous waters catalog, kind of piloting the use of Indigenous Sentinels Network to help get more submissions to that catalog that the state maintains. And then there's an effort that sort of Mark and others at the Yukon Flats are gearing up with Council of Athabascan Tribal Governments. We talked about those on the last call sort of briefly,
yes.
But just wanted to point out, so those 2 have direct links to this ISN piece.
Yes, if I could have accessed my notes, I would have remembered that. But very happy to see Mark on the call. Hi, Mark.
And there's some folks from the Waters Catalog project on here too. And you guys will be working with Lauren more here in the future. Questions for Lauren from folks?
Yes, Rob Kaler.
Hello, good. That was really very helpful. To a follow-up to Aaron's question, just kind of the contrast or comparison to the LEO network, and I guess specifically, how would you say that this complements the LEO network? And more specifically, I guess, help me understand, the LEO network is really observations that are provided, but this is not to say that the LEO network is not robust, but how do you complement that?
Sure. So when LEO Network started, we initiated, conversations with them, because I think the apps were actually in development at the same time. And as Mike Brubaker, who until recently was running the LEO network at ANTHC, he likes to say it is that LEO is an observation, voluntary and kind of opportunistic observation data collector. ISN is LEO's big brother, like nerdy big brother, where LEO network, I can log in, I can say I saw this weird thing, here's a picture of it, what is it? And I can send that out. And we can get information from that by having people come in and consult on it, and here's maybe what I think it is, and here's this, or I saw something here. What Indigenous Sentinels Network does is it takes, say you want to look at long-term trends, you want to collect baseline data, you want to have information that is able to say something about patterns and trends, or identify patterns and trends. You can't do that with just anomalous observations or kind of sporadic observations coming in from the area. You need enough information coming in to be able to say something about it. What we're doing is implementing standardized, repeatable surveys based on protocols that typically are developed with an agency partner, a management agency, a decision-making body. And we are implementing those surveys over time in a standardized way that we are able to identify and pick out patterns and trends with that information. So the quantitative data are really the focus of it. But that's not to say that we don't also log anomalous observations as well. And so often, Leo network, if we were putting in all of our observations, it might just be like, nothing was here, nothing was here, nothing was here. But those zeros over the long term, and to create a baseline or to look at when a change occurs, those are really important to have. Right now, a lot of communities and tribes lack that baseline information to be able to determine or say definitively when a change happened or what that change was. But for Leo network, something like we saw a whale wash in, it was a killer whale, here's the size and the details of it. That might be interesting to Leo, because if they see that somewhere else, or they have enough information coming in and they are able to then say, oh, we have a lot of whales washing in, here are all of the observations. Well, if we're not sharing that with them, then they don't know that that event occurred. And so they can't put it in the broader context with the rest of the observations that they're seeing. But they're quite different in like the end goal. And Aaron, you can add to that. I saw your hand.
I'm not going to, because you have two more questions. The questions are stacking up for you.
All right.
You've got a question from Vince there.
Vince asked, how successful have Native elders' traditional knowledge been captured with the app? And I would say in the design of the surveys, very well, because we are not implementing surveys for a particular, say, marine mammal in areas where our hunters, including our elders, have not told us that the area is important, or you should be looking at these locations for these species, or what we also picked more recently, coastal erosion monitoring sites. We went directly to people in the community that have lived their entire lives on St. Paul, and we asked them where they have seen the most change, and that's where we prioritized our monitoring efforts. So in that respect, it's been very successful. There are other networks that actually allow for, say, someone to just write down observations on a piece of paper and send it into the network, and then it goes into a database. That kind of information we have not been super successful, I'll say, at capturing with the app, but that's because everything is on a mobile or a web-based platform. And so it's more geared towards that type of data collection. We are working with some of those networks that are more successful in capturing specifically, knowledge from elders, oral histories, and traditional ecological knowledge, and being able to document that within the app and archive it. Hopefully that answers your question, but feel free to write more in the chat if you want follow up. And then Diane asked, are the protocols available to get an idea of what and where data are currently being collected? And yes, there are. We have a whole handbook of protocols. I shared some with Mark recently, and I'm happy to make those available to everyone. But I will say there's our handbook is in need of updating, because we actually just adopted the River Watch protocols from National Weather Service. National Weather Service. The ADF&G age, sex, length, ASL data collection for salmon. And but we have, yes, a suite of protocols that we have in our handbook, and I'm happy to share those.
Thanks, Lauren.
Yeah, we adopt protocols that have been widely or successfully implemented in the past to avoid reinventing the wheel. So for Seabird surveys, for instance, we have the Coastal Observation and Seabird Survey team does a beached bird survey, and it's a citizen science program, but we implemented it and made it part of our data collection suite, because successful. They had protocols, they have a great manual and guidebook, and we implement those surveys monthly and contribute our data to their database as well, so that it's from California up into Alaska, and that gives us broader context of what we're seeing in our community versus what is happening around the state and outside of the state. And so we try not to reinvent the wheel when we can, but work with those that have already established protocols to implement those.
Nice. Well, I'm going to have to jump off soon, but before I didn't have a chance, thank you very much, Lauren. I've heard so much about, or hear little snips and bits about these networks, and I've never really known. This has been like the best introduction to these that I've heard to date. So
really, good.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry to usurp the entire 45 minutes that that we had, but I'm happy to share.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. Any more questions for Lauren, or
I'm happy to field questions or get in touch with me via my email. Happy to share that with the group. Any follow-up is very welcome.
I can throw that in there.
I have a quick question about language, because from our,
yes.
Any idea of abilities to translate into?
Yep. So right now we are set up to offer multiple languages. Hooper Bay was one of the first places that we were really able to test this because language is not first language for many in Hooper Bay, and our observers were not. They were Yupik first language speakers, not English. And so that was a really fun proof of concept, because we knew that we could theoretically hold multiple languages in our database, but we were able to test that. And so yes, especially for like species names and equipment or the step-by-step protocols, being able to have that in a different language is critical. And as we look outside of our region, that's definitely something that we wanted to be able to accommodate. And so we are set up for different languages.
Awesome.
And you've got more praise coming in via the chat there, Lauren. I'll just let you read that to yourself.
Thank you, Marianne.
So we're kind of down to 5-ish minutes. I'll definitely suspend it. The Northern Latitudes Partnerships folks, we didn't have anything super pressing. We continue to make some progress on the projects that we talked about. I know the Anadromous Waters Catalog folks, I had an email started to you all based on a conversation that I had with Jeremy this morning. We've got some good ideas for our team. But just open the floor to basically anybody who wants to say or ask anything at this point. Let's do that. Could be about Lauren, it could be about anything else.
Well, I'll jump in. This is Vince. This has been discussed using an app in the interior, and it's been a mixed bag. The responses have been internet connection can be poor to non-existing in the villages, and then the whole technology of an app. I see it in a positive light, assuming those can be gone beyond it. Get beyond them, this is an opportunity with youth, young adults, and that are comfortable with an app environment to work with elders to capture, which I alluded to earlier, traditional ecological knowledge, which is beyond a single species observation. So have the communities that you focused on, do they have an internet connection problem, and this distancing of understanding the technology of apps?
That's a great question. So we do not ever really operate this app with an internet connection whatsoever. Often, no, I'll say we hardly ever operate it with even a cell phone reception in St. Paul. So that was one of the main things that we had to be able to offer was no bandwidth, no cell phone data. The data doesn't exist in St. Paul. You never get data on your cell phone. So unless you're on Wi-Fi, you might as well have a landline, which we do have a landline in St. Paul. And so that was critical. So the connectivity issues are not a problem for data collection for this app, for the Indigenous Sentinels Network program. You do have to eventually have Wi-Fi to upload data, but they upload under low bandwidth, and they are designed to take as little space and bandwidth as possible. So these are like little bits of information that need just minimal bandwidth. We have never had a problem in St. Paul with it, and I'll say we'll have every other remote rural villages bandwidth issues and low to no connectivity, and we have never lost data. The youth, I'm glad you mentioned that. We are striving so hard to incorporate more opportunities for youth, and we've been working with UAF, University of Alaska Fairbanks, and their Arctic and Earth Science faculty that are working with curriculum development and teachers in schools to implement data collection programs. And ISN is one of the apps that they're experimenting with in the classroom. We also, just for workforce development and educational skills, are really interested in doing that. Myra said yes, the refuge information technicians could also utilize this program. It's youth and young adults are a key audience for us, and so that's one thing when we whenever we can involve youth and young adults in data collection in a community, we're very much excited about that. And I think you're right. We haven't necessarily gotten over the hump of just using these technologies in general is kind of unpalatable to some of those with long histories and deep traditional Indigenous knowledge. And so exploring ways to partner elders and youth or young adults or professional sentinels with the elder community to help document that information or involve them in surveys is something that we're always kind of looking at as well. But we have not solved all of the issues. Like, there's plenty left to improve upon.
Nice. All right. Well, here we are at 2 o'clock. Anybody want to offer a last word?
This is Rob. I could follow this up just with an email with Lauren, but I'm part of the East Asian Australasian Flyway Partnership. So our connection to the folks on the other side of the Bering is of huge interest to me. And so I wonder maybe about how we might be able to expand this to those folks, our Russian colleagues, as well as, for me, the East Asian Australasian Flyway.
Great question again. We're working through Aleut International Association right now to revamp our app to actually include a previous version of their local and traditional knowledge gathering app and join forces to implement in Russian communities. That is one way.
Yeah. Awesome. Great to hear.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, clearly, Lauren, people just want to keep you here all day.
Yes, feel free to reach out to me afterwards. This is something obviously I'm really excited about and could talk forever about. So of course, we're a grassroots organization, like building. So we're doing the painstaking. You have to, build enough notoriety and support to really get the thing off the ground. And so the more that we can share with Indigenous Sentinels Network, the better. And we're definitely seeing the benefits of really just getting out there and trying to network and promote and coordinate with other folks that are doing similar efforts and join forces where we can. So happy to talk more.
All right. Well, I think maybe we'll leave it there for this time. And thank you everyone for tuning in.